everybody, and happy Dragon Age Day, and welcome to our live Q&A with actor Mark Hildreth. We are incredibly thrilled to have him with us, and now all of you already know who he is, but I'm going to give him an intro anyway. He is an actor and musician known for appearances in Novelmore, The Hollow, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, The Good Doctor, The Looming Tower, which, by the way, amazing, and you all need to see it. And of course, he is beloved by Dragon Age fans as the voice of Sten in Dragon Age Origins. And we're so thrilled to have you today, Mark. Thank you. So
it's my pleasure. Thank you for that wonderful introduction. You make me sound like like you make me sound so great. Thank you for that.
Then my job here is done. Okay, this was a great meeting, everybody. Okay, no, I don't think it can go better after this. So I've got some great questions for you submitted from fans. So I'm gonna jump right in. And first and foremost, I sorted them slightly here, so here we go. When did you realize you wanted to be an actor?
Oh gosh, well, I was one of those kids who kind of knew they wanted to act since they were, very little. I grew up in Vancouver, and I was very lucky to grow up in a city where, they've made so much great content over so many years. There's this huge film and television industry they have. Yeah. And then all of this this voiceover. When I was about 10 years old, the agency that represented me sort of moved to a sort of like a new ownership. And they're like, does Mark want to try voiceover? Like, I don't know, would he be into that? And I was like, sure. Like, I had no idea what that was.
Wow. So you just kind of fell into it.
Yeah, more or less. And I was given my very first job in voiceover by a wonderful director in the US whose name is Marcia Goodman, who I'm still friends with. Actually, my mom and dad just visited with her like 2 days ago. Oh, that's great. Her and her husband. These are like lifelong friends. And yeah, we did this remake of the old Bob Clampett cartoon, like from the 50s, Beanie and Cecil. And I was cast as Beanie, who's the kid with the beanie.
Right.
And yeah, you're just like in this weird, windowless room with headphones, and a bunch of adults who are like hilarious and awesome. And I was like, yeah, I'm super into this. This is fun.
That's amazing. Before I get into, because I'm going to be asking you a lot about Sten, we all have questions, but I wanted to ask, do you have a favorite play or a favorite character that you would love to play someday, or if you could?
It's Hamlet.
Really?
It's always Hamlet for me.
I think it is always Hamlet. It's
always Hamlet. I mean, and all the best characters I feel like that I've gotten to play are a little bit Hamlet. Meaning like even Sten, and I don't mean to like, make that sound too like, a pomposity or whatever, but characters that are like basically good people who are struggling under extraordinary circumstances to try to do the right thing. That's what always interests me the most. Like that, those are always the plays that I love. And even in a character like Sten, that's what sort of drew me to it, was like he's stuck in this terrible situation, but he's more or less got some kind of heart, even though he's been trained to be this like, warrior. Right. Right. He's got some kind of conscience that he's struggling with. And I love that. That's always the most interesting stories.
Well, and you get such a rich path to follow for him. There's so much development, and there are so many ways that Sten can end up, so he's got a really rich development as a character through the whole story for you to play.
Totally.
What attracted you to the part of Sten? How did that happen for you?
It was, I mean, back then, like, video games were not in their infancy, but they're sure not. Like the technology is unbelievable how quickly it changes, and how much it improves. And I actually was helping out a little bit, working on the new Horizon Forbidden West recently, and it's awesome. I know that's the mic drop I'm going to leave with you guys today, because it's about to come out.
That's amazing.
And I haven't been able to talk about it because you're not allowed to talk about these things. But but it's just about to drop, and it's just going to be awesome.
That's amazing.
But Sten was all voiceover in Horizon. There's a lot of motion capture, which I'd never really done before, you know.
Yeah.
Because I've worked mostly on camera. But with Sten, it was like you just develop a character using only your voice.
Yeah.
You know, like you would with any other type of animation. And I found that it's always the script. Like it's always I feel like any actor's only as good as the script that they get. That's why I feel like the writers are so undervalued in all of our, you know, different media industries. Writers and editors are the ones who really never get as much credit as they really deserve. And so with Sten, to answer your question, there was just so much already there in the dialogue, you know, and in the script and in the story. So, you know, for me, it's like I get to sort of mine out whatever's there and then bring whatever I can bring to it. And there was already lots in there, you know. There's already this sort of rich character, and he's got this, you know, backstory and background. That's not always like that in video games, you know.
No, right. No, but it's almost it's novelistic that the characters are so rich. And as someone, I'm familiar with your work as an actor, so it's really fun for me to watch play Origins rather. And Sten has this very specific and arresting voice. So obviously you created a voice for Sten. How do you do that, and how do you arrive at who the character is going to sound like?
You just try to talk really low.
Okay. Which works really well, especially for Kunari, right? So, yeah.
You know, to be honest, like I was saying, I was lucky to kind of grow up in the acting world. It's not where my family comes from. You know, my dad was a public school teacher. My mom's a painter. So it wasn't something that was like part of my family, but I was fortunate to grow up in that industry. So I learned from some of the best, to be honest with you. Like that's kind of how I did it. You know, I got to see these other amazing artists doing these incredible things with their voice. I was never one of those actors who could you know, literally play like 50 different characters and they all sound completely different. I can do that, but there's certain actors, and I'm sure you guys I see people nodding like they can think of all the people, you know, these amazing voiceover actors who like, it's almost like it's not the same person, you know? And so different people specialize in different ways. That wasn't so much, you know, I tend to, you know, more towards like kind of the hero voice. But yeah, I mean, there was like, I got to see pictures of this Sten, of this character. I got to see, you know, I got to understand the backstory a little bit. I got to understand a little bit how he sort of fits into the story and the world of the game. And that's kind of how I approached it. I didn't really, you know, think too much about like what he's supposed to sound like or how he should sound. It just kind of came from the characterization. Yeah. But he's bigger than me, so he needed to sound a little bigger than me. You know what I mean? I don't know what he must got to be easily 250 pounds, don't you think?
He's a big guy. Yeah,
he's a big dude.
And he's our first Kunari. You were the first Kunari that we encountered, and so it's so wonderful. Yeah. Nick would like to know what you do to get in character for a session. So before you played Sten in a voice session, what would you do to get sort of in character? Do you do anything?
It depends. I mean, it's not, to be honest, it's not so different what I would do to prepare to get to do like a video game versus like an animated project versus a player or a film. You know, the way that I was taught, and I studied with some wonderful people, and I went to school and I was classically trained, and a little bit like what I was just talking about. It's all about understanding where this character, where this person comes from, how they were raised, what their experiences were. Like your experiences form you. You know, like your experience with your parents, for example, or like the people who were around when you grew up, or like, you know, the different things in your life, and then the way that you respond to those things is what forms your personality. So yeah, mostly it's not so much like right before a session. For me, it's always been, that's like the actor's homework.
Yeah.
and that's where you get to bring your creative process as an actor and go like, okay, where did this person come? You get to like build a person, and the more you can do that, the more realistic or believable that character ends up coming across as, because you interact with this fictional character as like a player or an audience member, and you get a feeling like, oh, that's kind of a real person, because they're sort of like you. They have a history. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Savvy wants to know if you have anything in common with Sten.
I do.
Did you have
Sorry,
anything in common with Sten, or did you find a sort of common ground when you were playing him, or do you not need to do that, by the way?
No, I think it's good to find. Yeah, you can try to find common ground. I mean, I don't know. I feel like a little bit of an alien, doesn't everybody? Like a little bit of an outsider, right? Yeah, like I always felt like I was kind of just like every kid does. Like you always feel a little bit different. So I don't know. That's the first thing that jumps to mind.
Yeah,
because
especially if you're an artist. Especially if you're an artist and you're a musician as well. So you got a double whammy there. So you're kind of required to feel like an alien in the world in a good way.
That's right.
I wanted to ask you, my favorite thing about Sten is the very quiet sense of humor that he has, because he doesn't come across as a funny guy, but he's hilarious. People don't understand, not everyone appreciates it. I happen to be a fan of it. What were those scenes like for you to play? Like, for instance, when Sten and the Mabari, you can have Sten and Barkspawn actually go in and, stage a rescue at the castle. It's my favorite scene in all of Dragon Age. So how was I mean,
honestly, those scenes are the best. Those are the most fun, especially when you built a character like this who's not meant to be funny.
Right.
He's not exactly the comic relief.
Right.
But he's kind of the opposite of that. And those are really fun scenes when you get to build a character, or you're given a character who's so the opposite of funny, and then find how, because everybody's funny. Everything should be funny. You should be able to laugh.
Right.
You know what I mean? At yourself, at least. Somehow.
Yeah.
And I my mom, my dad, and their friends are hilarious. And so I grew up with people around me who have great senses of humor.
Which always helps.
That's key. So yeah, just playing opposites is always fun for actors.
Yeah.
When you get to play, or maybe it's probably would work the same way if your character was meant to be like the comic relief, the jester, and then you get to do like kind of like a serious scene.
Yeah.
That stuff's fun. So it was great to find how we could kind of make fun of him, and kind of make fun of how serious he has to be. He was always so serious about everything.
So serious. But that's what makes it great. Like the scene where the conversation about the pry bar with Morrigan, where he acts like he's going to take her up on her offer to finally sleep with him. And he's like, well, we're going to need 25 things for safety. And she's like, never mind. But it kind of also shows that he's thawing a little bit and becoming more human with his, companions, that they're becoming closer. And so that's really fun for all of us. I've got another question here from Jeanette. Going off of Sten's amazement at cookies, do you have a favorite cookie? And if so, what is it? We like you to take the really hard questions here, Mark. So.
Yeah, well, I definitely hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought of an answer to that one. I guess probably ginger snaps. Does everybody know what ginger snaps are? They're like the crispy ginger cookies. Yeah. Sometimes they're soft. I like the soft ones too. Those are good too. But that's what was, that's what was always. I don't have cookies in my house, to be honest with you. I'm not really a cookie person, but if I had to pick one, I'd probably go ginger snaps.
All right, this is good information for all of us. And then, have you actually played the Dragon Age games yourself? And what was that experience like for you? Was it weird to hear yourself, by the way, in the game?
No, I mean, it's been a minute. I'll be honest, but I wish they would release it for like PlayStation 5 or 4, or the new generations, the new platforms. That would be fun, because you can't like backdate your I don't know, I'm not sure how it works maybe on Xbox or on PC, but I know that like you can't go back and play some of the older generation games. It's, what I usually will listen or watch myself in a given project like once.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like, I'm good. I just want to see, I just want to see like if what I thought I was doing translated to what I actually did, and like how close I came to hitting the mark that I was trying to hit. And then after that, I'm like, okay, I never need to watch that again.
Yeah. So, well, and with that in mind, do you have any favorite mistakes? Do you have maybe a work that you did that didn't come out the way that for yourself that you thought, or maybe that turned out better than you expected? It can be either way. Just something that surprised you when you saw it.
We had a little, I guess, a little sort of giveaway with some records of mine. I've made a couple of albums, and those were honestly like the biggest surprises for me, because it's so I'd never gotten to like write, create, and like self-produce more or less, a project as an actor in the way that I get to as a musician. And that's probably the best part of it, to be honest with you, is seeing something sort of from its inception, actually being the writer yourself, and then seeing how that evolves as you put it into the hands of other people. And they bring, what they bring to the table. And I had these like wonderful, amazing musicians play on both of those records. These are like, people who had played to tens of thousands of people, in like massive stadiums and things like that. And then here they were in this little studio with me, making my little record. Yeah, I mean, there was lots of stuff. If you could hear the outtakes, there's sounds that I make on those that are not pretty. There's some bad singing.
There are plenty of pretty sounds there too, though I want to point out. I mean, you've actually won some Billboard Music Awards, and I know that you were a music prodigy, right? Did I read that from when you were a kid? What was your first instrument, or how did you get into music?
Yeah, I taught myself Beethoven when I was about 10.
Yeah, that's prodigy. That works.
I didn't take lessons. I took there was a piano in our house, and I was just messed around on it for some years since I was very little, and my parents again were like very supportive of what I gravitated towards, and they were that with I have 3 younger brothers, and they were that with all of us, and we all had different interests, but they were very supportive of like whatever it was that we kind of gravitated towards, which I feel like is so important with kids, because I feel like kids are there's some personality in there, and just fostering and supporting whatever that sort of naturally is. My folks were really great with that. So yeah, I just was messing around on the piano, and then I started to just sort of pick it up. It turned out that I had an ear for it. So yeah, so they did get me lessons eventually, and I took like 6 months of lessons, and it took about 4 or 5 months for the piano teacher to realize that like I was learning to play the songs, but I wasn't learning to read the music like they were teaching me. Like I was just picking it up and playing it by ear, and we all thought it was going great. And then after a while, that she like took the music away, and I was like, I don't know, I'm just listening to what you're doing and then playing it.
Wow, that's great though. Yeah. Are you planning a new album now, by the way?
Yeah, I'm actually yeah. I mean, I'm always working on a new album, but I've been actually leaning towards writing a musical, which I kind of only just started, and we just lost Stephen Sondheim. And for those who don't know, Stephen Sondheim was probably the greatest musical writer, author, at least in my opinion, of the last, I don't know, 100 years. I mean, he was.
It's devastating.
Something else.
Not okay. Yeah.
No, I know. It's very sad. And I'm not even, I'm not a huge musical buff. So probably there's others, who I'm forgetting or don't know, but he was just so inspiring to me. And so I thought I'd try my hand at that.
Well, this is great because it translates to me. It's bridging both of your worlds, because you're already a musician and singer, and you're just bringing those two worlds together. So, you're getting to do something new with it, which is really exciting.
Yeah, theoretically that should work, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what could go wrong?
It sounds great. Well, I hope you'll keep us posted and keep tweeting about it. That was how I knew about it, because you tweeted about it. And you know, and I hope you'll, you know, let us know how it's going out here. We'd love to hear it. So sneak a few songs out there when you can.
I will.
And then Savvy wants to know if you have any pets. I mean, because Sten loves his Mabari, let's face it. So do you have a Mabari or a cat of your own or something?
I don't at the moment. You know, I had I lost him, unfortunately, a few years ago. He passed, but he was wonderful.
Oh no.
And I would get another. Honestly, I would. It was. I mean, I grew up with dogs. We had dogs when I was a kid. So I love pets and I love dogs, but I don't have one at the moment.
I imagine also with work, sometimes it's hard to have a pet. If you travel a lot, you're shooting a lot and stuff, that makes it challenging as well. It's
hard with travel, and like, you don't want to take a dog on a plane or a cat. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't want to do it. You can do it. And I mean, I know people who do, and I have friends who have dogs who they love it, and it does, you know what I mean? It doesn't bother them. But mine was, there's some breeds that are better for flying, you know what I mean? And bulldogs are not one of them.
Yeah. No, I know.
Not into that.
I can see that.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, from Sten to Scott Summers in Astonishing X-Men to many other projects, what are your favorite voice roles and why?
Oh gosh. Well, I did this one role one time. I don't know if you guys have heard of him, Hero Yui, Gundam Wing, this little show. That was a little bit like Sten, because it was more dramatic, I guess. It's a sort of a dramatic role within the context of like animation and voiceover and video games. And it's not like it's you know, super heavy and dramatic, but there's something that I gravitate towards about that. And I love the sort of role-playing like single person, like adventure world games, Lord of the Rings. I mean, I love that. That's totally up my alley. So I love that about Sten and about the Dragon Age world, because that whole sort of like fantasy lore kind of space is totally my bag. But yeah, Gundam was interesting because there was definitely that element was in it for sure. You know, it wasn't just kind of cartoony, wacky Looney Tunes type of thing. There was a lot of and it had humor, and it had, you know, it's lots of like all those layers, and that's what I see someone writing Lord of the Rings, and like that's what I love that, you know, that it has like, it works on many different levels, and has some kind of like philosophical kind of point to it. Like I was saying before, you know, there's some kind of like it's not just for entertainment. It's really entertaining, and it's also like, you know, super kind of thought-provoking.
How has motion capture, how has voice work evolved for you? You were talking a little bit about that earlier. Do you find it more satisfying that you can use movement now as well as your voice?
Yeah, I haven't done a lot of mocap, to be honest with you. I know lots of actors who have, and they seem to like it. It's pretty cool to see the like in mocap, it's like a whole new kind of animation. I have a friend who's in one of the Planet of the Apes movies, and it's amazing because he posted a picture of his face next to his like character's face, who's a gorilla, and he's in there, you know, like you can see him, and it kind of has his eyes. And it's amazing, you know, like you can see sort of the essence of him in the animation, but there is no you in the animation. It's animation, you know. Yeah. It's not a film. It's not like film where it's like it's actually you know. Yeah. That's amazing, because that wasn't around even as recently as like I don't know, even the past few years. It's just awesome, like how, and that's going to be, it's not going to be the way of the future, but it's going to be a way, you know, in the future where like it's just going to become so much more and more and more photorealistic, that you can give a performance. When I was doing the Horizon Forbidden West, we were joking about like making Hamlet the video game. And how cool would it be to like be able to create a characterization in a video game that was that like complex and nuanced, you know, that could get all of that sort of subtlety of expression and emotion. And it's getting there. I agree. Like it's really getting there.
Yeah, I think people who don't play games don't give them credit for the richness and complexity that the characters can really have. Sten would be a great case in point. I mean, his journey as a character is just wonderful. I wanted to ask you, as far as Sten goes, what was it that you felt it was most important to portray about Sten, and what little details did you bring to creating him as a character, if you can remember them? Yeah,
it was, I mean, not human, because he's not human, but a humanity, you know?
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't feel like, in a way, like storytelling hasn't really changed in like thousands of years in certain, you know, sort of basic ways. Like you want to be able to, like, if you can't relate to a character at all, then, you know, it's just words. It's not a story. You know, it's not a communication that's meaningful when you take in a character, when you experience a character in a story. You have to be able to relate with that character. So like having some sense of humanity, or having some sense of, even if it's like a horrible like villain, you know, you need to be able to portray that in a way that people can kind of connect to it. And if you look at all of the greatest writing, you know what I mean? If you go to whatever you think the greatest writers are, you know, Shakespeare, for example, even in the worst villainous characters, there's something that you're like, I get this person, you know, like I can kind of wrap my head around it or something. They're relatable, or so it's that. And that's what was interesting about it, was like that, like I said, that was already in the writing. So I could go on like, okay, like this guy's got some kind of like a struggle, you know, he's trying to like figure something out. And as soon as I had that, I was like, okay, now I can like, you know, breathe life into this character. He's not going to come across as like two-dimensional and boring and like, who wants this guy on his team? You know, and you're like, oh, is this a good guy? Is this not a good guy? You know, is he going to help me? Is he going to hurt me? You know, then you're sort of intrigued, right?
Yeah.
Then you're like, maybe I do want him on my team.
Yeah. I know everybody who leaves Sten and Lothering, they don't exist for me. I just want you to know. Well, my favorite thing about Sten is that he is kind of a tragic character. We can't save him. He is trapped in the Qun. Like when we leave the game, he is still going to be in the Qun, and which to me is a tragic thing. It's not to him. I don't think he thinks it's tragic, but it's interesting that he's tempted by all these things, cookies, kittens, sorry, mine is making an appearance, flowers, etc. But he never seems truly tempted. Was that kind of a conscious choice for you? Okay, I'm not gonna, you know, do you play him from inside or outside?
Tempted for cookies?
He never seems tempted to leave the Qun, to leave his like.
Well, it's his whole identity. That's the thing, is like I was saying, like it's fun to play opposites as an actor. So like that was his whole identity. So like that's like a static thing, you know, that's just like where he comes from. That's like, I don't know, what's a good comparison? That's like Worf, you know, like that's just where you start, right? And then it's funny to see you kind of struggle with that or go away from that. But that can't be like, you know, I mean, that's like unquestionable. That was like part of his identity. You know, or at least he felt like that. That's who I am. So I wouldn't have gone away from that, because like once you've got that, you've got kind of like a foundation, something to stand on. So then when you see him,
that's what I was wondering,
with cookies, you're like, that's hilarious, you know?
The poor guy, and they don't have them there. I always figure he goes back when he goes back to Paravalon, he's got a kitten in his knapsack and a big thing of cookies. So you know, maybe some recipes.
Like sneaks it in.
Yeah, you know. Well, I want to ask you, because I am a huge fan of the Looming Tower, and I babble about it constantly to people. And if it's okay, what was your favorite thing about playing Gordon in that? Because for me, it was, I could see that you were a smart guy who is nevertheless kind of losing his innocence as it goes along. You know, he's kind of losing that sense of idealism in maybe what he was doing, what his, you know, his job, his agency, etc. Can you talk about it a little bit?
That's a really great question, and that's very astute. I think that is, that's kind of the I don't know, like sort of the motif of the whole series. For those who don't know, the Looming Tower is a limited series that we made for Hulu with starring Raheem, who's amazing. And it's all about the lead up to 9/11 and the struggles and conflicts between the CIA and the FBI, and how they tried to deal with it. So it's pretty heavy subject matter. I mean, the best part of it, I'd say, was when getting to spend a little time. It was kind of an ensemble. There was like the FBI team that was led by Jeff Daniels, and then there was like the CIA team that was led by Peter Sarsgaard. Right. And so we were very sort of separate. But within those two kind of camps, it was really like an ensemble feel, where there's a lot of scenes where we're all in those scenes together, which isn't always how it works on television. A lot of times there's, I mean, Jeff and Tahar had a lot of, one-on-one stuff, but when it was kind of like, we got to, and those actors are wonderful. Yeah. Every actor in there is really, they're like just top notch. We shot that out in New York. And so you have these like amazing New York theater and film and television actors. And I can tell you, like, Jeff Daniels is the real deal. He's really a wonderful guy. And when we discovered we're both musicians, he has a band with his sons who are also musicians, and he tours a little bit. And so he had this little travel guitar that he would pull out on set. It would look like it was in like a violin case, but it was this little guitar.
Oh, that's great.
And we just like sit between setups and like play guitar, and it's wonderful.
That's amazing. Well, my next question was actually going to be to ask you what it was like to be part of that ensemble, but I think you kind of answered it for me. So it sounds like it was amazing. Everybody, you need to watch it, by the way. And Mark, you're great in it. So it's just a terrific piece of television. So congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
Another question for you from one of our fans is Ascabella would like to know if you could voice another, voice another character in the Dragon Age game world, who would you have liked to try out, or who did you think, oh, that's a fun part? So any favorites there? Or?
I mean, I to be honest with you, like, I don't really think of it that way. It's not like, I feel like if you were meant to, maybe it's just like the way you got to kind of keep yourself sane as an actor, but if you were meant to play a role, then that probably hopefully will happen. And if you weren't, if it wasn't meant for you, you know what I mean, it wasn't meant for you, and you got to let those things like go gracefully. I mean, to be honest, like, I think it'd be cool to see Sten again and see where he's gone and where he's where he's just sort of developed to, or like, maybe he like, learned how to like bake cookies and, became like a pastry chef or something.
We have a lot of fans who were going to asking you about that, and I wasn't sure if you would be able to talk about that or not. So everybody definitely was wanting to. Would you play Sten again if the opportunity arose? And I
mean, I think it'd be a lot of fun. It's another thing that's kind of like changed and evolved in the way that we do stories, and certainly in film. But also in video games is like now, like, because we don't do sequels anymore. Remember sequels? Right? When it was like something 1 and then something 2 and then something 3. Yeah. I mean, we still do that, but like now we build worlds. Yeah. We have like universes, and all kinds of things can interact within that universe. And it's not like just, one set of characters on another journey, on another adventure. So yeah, wouldn't it be cool to one day just run into Sten again somehow in one of these worlds and see where he's gotten himself to, or I don't know, the origin story, the origins origin. But something like that.
That was a good one. And we have a lot of people wanting to know what voice work is like for you. And you mentioned you're in a little booth, and and do you have someone always feeding the lines back to you, or sometimes is it just you and you just got to give it the performance as if you are interacting with many people, for instance?
It's different after the pandemic. So it would depend on, before the pandemic, it would really depend on the nature of the project. So if you're doing like a prelay, animated series, the way normally we would have done that is you'd have most of or all the actors would be either in a studio together, more often like physically in a studio together, or maybe a couple of people are being patched in, like, remotely. But it was more or less in real time, even if there were, one or two people who were being, sort of piped in from another city for whatever reason. You were playing off each other. Post pandemic, not so much.
Right.
Right. So we all have to sort of be remote. And it's changed. It's changed a whole lot. So like real-time interaction of actors working off of other actors, not as common anymore, or at least not at the moment. So a lot of the time, at least nowadays, like you're in a room by yourself and you have somebody doing, directing and working with people a lot like we're doing right now. And sometimes it actually is over like just a video conference or something. There's some other kind of technology that we can use as well, which is, but it's a pretty solo effort these days. Some things were already like that. When we did Dragon Age, it was more or less like that. It was mostly me in a studio, and like a director and a couple of other people. And if you were lucky, some other actor had been in a studio and recorded their lines before you, so you could actually at least hear but more often than not, I seem to recall the way it was often for me. It was, I just happened to be the first person recording for those scenes. So you're just throwing stuff out there and sometimes trying to just sort of guess what, how the other performer was going to throw it back at you.
Yeah. Amy Gardner Young would like to know, how do you approach preparation differently for an on-screen role versus a voice role?
Well, like I was saying before, like it's not so different, to be honest. Because at least the way that I work, because it's so much to do with like backstory and creating like a character's history and trying to create / understand from the script that you have, who this person is and where they come from and how their personality, how their character fits into the story. I can add to what I was saying before, that for me, I didn't always work like this, but for me now, I'm also interested in like what's the point of this story? Why are we telling this? I'm sure you can all think of like, some films or projects or whatever that you've seen that you're sort of going like, why am I watching this? Do you have this experience sometimes? Like late at night and you're watching whatever it is, Netflix or Amazon, whatever it is, and you're like halfway through it and you're like, why am I watching this?
And then
I'm not gonna like, Nate, I'm not gonna like, call out anybody, but like there's lots of projects where it's like, I don't know. So that's a question that I ask now, at least of myself. And if I can, of the, the creators or the people that I'm working with, like, why are we making this? What's the purpose of this? Like, how is this like making somebody's life richer or more interesting or shedding light on something? Again, like if you go back to the great writers, and I'll just say, for sake of argument, like if you look at Shakespeare, every play has like a purpose, there's some kind of morality. There's some kind of like question of like, how do we best live together in society? That's being asked. And like every great script that I've ever read is asking that question on some level. So like, it's not to be like, judgmental or moralistic about it and be like, well, I think this is how people should live. It's just, if the thing is asking somewhere, if there's characters struggling with like, that's something I do to prep too, because I want to feel like there's a purpose to what I'm doing. I don't want to just be here for entertainment. I want to feel like, and that's, I think, like the mindset that artists tend to have.
So for you, when you pick a project, you really think about this big picture issue of, is it worth it? Is it going to bring something new to the world and say something new, hopefully? So
yeah, I want it to have like like ideally, like flip back to like, you're on your couch, like watching, some show or whatever. Like ideally, the experience that I want to have is I want to be different at the end of that show than I was at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, like, I just kind of wasted an hour of my life,
Right.
And hopefully I'm better off. And that's, again, it's not to say that like I want to be different, like somebody told me what I should think or whatever. I want to be different where it's like I take in this project and I'm like, I never thought of that before.
Yeah.
Right. There's something that like makes me go like, oh, I never like saw things that way.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like it's not always like that, and it doesn't need to be always like that. Like I believe there's room for everything, and sometimes it's just entertaining, and like that's great. I'm cool with that, and I like that.
Mm-hmm.
But ideally, right, it's entertaining and also thought provoking.
Yeah. Amy has another great question. She wanted to know what was something that surprised you after you entered the fandom space as an actor.
Entered the what?
The fandom space. So for instance, the Dragon Age world, you've got a whole slew of fans just because of Sten, that kind of thing. So,
right.
So it's a very specific world.
I don't know if I'm in the fandom space. I mean,
you are now.
I guess I am.
You are right now.
So this is it.
This is what.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't honestly, like, I don't think of myself that way. I don't really, like I know that there's fans, and I know there's fans of some of the work that I've done. I don't know. I was just raised like we're all human beings, and you know what I mean? Like we're all basically the same, more or less, and so I don't, but that being said, it's very flattering. So maybe that's why I sort of deflect a little, because it's very flattering, and it's very I think in the best way, like it's sort of humbling that you did something, you created something, and that someone's like, I like that thing that you created, like that means a lot, in any context. So it's like, it's very it's very flattering, and to be honest with you, makes me feel a little embarrassed.
Sorry. Well, and see now, and because it's fandom, by the way, we don't like things. We love things. So there are people who have cosplayed Sten. There are people writing fanfics about Sten. There are people who are drawing fan art about Sten. Hopefully, I don't know if you've seen any of it, but it's amazing.
I have.
And there are a lot of kittens out there in the fan art, by the way, with Sten. So it's a whole world. So you kind of have a little army out there. so just to embarrass you completely. So
no, I mean, that's awesome. That is honestly like it's awesome, and I'm very, like I said, like it's super flattering. Like I was just saying before, like if I if you can touch somebody's life, or like have an influence on somebody in any way that's like positive, like I feel like you're doing your job as a human being, so insofar as like that is an effect of what we made, and the projects that I can put out there, I'm very proud of that. I hope that it's positive for people, and so like it seems like it is on a bunch of levels. So like that's very flattering, and like very it's very empowering, to hear that, like, I'm like, I really enjoyed this thing that you created. That's just great.
Well, we do. So thank you, by the way. Speaking for all of us here, because I get the chance to do that. I wanted to ask you, because you were talking about musicals, and we know now that you're actually writing one. Do you have a favorite musical, like from childhood, or a favorite musical moment that made you really take notice?
I think Sweeney Todd is probably like a perfect musical.
That's my favorite. I love it so much.
Like it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's just like, not to be too technical about it or whatever, but like just structurally it's perfect. Like the characterization is just, I mean, it's just got everything.
It's amazing.
right? It's amazing. And there's other great musicals too, but that's the one that sort of jumps to mind for me, like the top of the list. Like it's just so, and like I was saying before, again, it's like, it's almost like you wouldn't expect that you could relate to, understand, and even like enjoy these like horrible people.
Horrible people. They're terrible.
Awful.
They are.
Like that's the worst of the worst. But there's this like Sondheim brings this, you at the end of it, it's not like you're like, oh my God, those people are horrible. Humanity is a terrible thing, right? At the end of it, you're like, wow, that's how that happens. Like there's that song he has in the middle, Epiphany, right? Where he goes from a guy who had a conscience to a guy who now like doesn't care.
And he's
anymore.
done. Yeah, he's just done. It's that turning point. Like,
oh, and it's like really like sobering and like awful.
Yeah, he's a tragic character, I think. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. And I love that. And then of course, like the music is just so good. I mean,
I love,
it's so good.
I love that it's his darkest show and musically I think it's most sweeping and beautiful. I mean, it's amazing. You have these horrible people, horrible things are happening, and the music's just sublime. It's so gorgeous.
The Priest. Try the Priest has got to be like one of the greatest musicals, certainly greatest musical songs ever written.
Would you ever have you ever done a musical, and would you ever do one?
I've done a couple. Yeah, I mean, I've done a couple. I haven't done a lot, to be honest with you. It's just not I've been very lucky, and I've gotten to the opportunity to do a lot of different things as an actor. I've gotten to work in like a whole lot of different mediums, and I've done a little bit of musical theater, but not a whole lot, to be honest with you.
Do you like stage work, or do you prefer being in front of a camera? What's your favorite medium?
Stage.
Really?
Love stage work. Yeah. They're so different. It's like you can't, you know what I mean? It's like, it's almost like, to me, it always felt like, like Michael, I said, my mom's a painter. So it's like, do you like watercolor better than oils or whatever? And it's like, yeah, but it's all painting.
Right.
Right. So I don't really separate them in that way, but the text in theater is more often than not, it's so good. And it has that stuff that I was just talking about. It has some it's not just commercial. Yeah. It's not just for sales. In fact, it's very hard to make money in the theater. So
yeah, that's the only downside.
You're doing it for some other reason,
Yeah.
But I love the stage, and stage is really like where I started. My very first job as a 5-year-old was on stage. So wow. It's sort of in my bones.
Well, and you never have to worry about with a play that it's about something. I mean, you might question what, maybe what a show that you're in is about or whatever, but certainly with the stage, it seems to me that, with a play, they're trying to say something there. So
for sure. And not every play is like great, and not everybody likes theater, and that's okay too. You know what I mean? Like it's not up everybody's alley. Yeah. But yeah, you also like, I've done all kinds of plays, and some of them I've done that are, very old and very well established and are we know are great plays. And I've also done like lots of new work. Like brand new plays that no one's ever seen before, and that's also part of like an artist's process. Is like you need to, I think we need to like do the older stuff, and just as much as we do the older stuff, we need to do brand new stuff.
Yeah,
and support like those art forms going forward, and have like new stories being told that include new perspectives, new points of view, new characters that reflect the world we're in right now. All those great plays that we did, some hundreds of years ago, they were doing that then. They were like as best as they could, reflecting, what the world was like and the struggles that we have in the world. And like that's what artists do. So I love doing that. I love being a part of like something new, and it's hit and miss, like maybe it doesn't work, or maybe it doesn't work yet. And it's on its way to becoming, something that is one day as Sweeney Todd or whatever.
Yeah.
But we need more. We always need more diversity of story, more diversity of character, and more diversity of voices in all of the arts.
Yeah.
Whether it's theater and film and television, and like the worlds that I more or less live in, or any art form. The whole point of it is the whole point of all the stuff we make is to, as I say, reflect back what's going on in the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I can support new work, that's always been, I think the noble part,
Mm-hmm.
you know, of being an artist.
Yeah. And the most exciting part, hopefully, too.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it is, because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Like if you do Hamlet, you're like, oh, I don't know. Everybody's done Hamlet. I mean, we've been doing this for 500 years, you know,
Yeah.
like everybody knows this, even if you've never read it, you know, or seen it.
You still know Hamlet.
You know it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. When it's something new, it is exciting because it's new and you don't know where it's going to go or how it's going to end up.
I wanted to ask you, we're wrapping up here shortly for you, because I know you have to go shortly, but do you have any favorite roles? For instance, I loved Resurrection. I love Pastor Tom. Do you have any roles that you particularly loved or felt were challenging and or surprising for you?
Yeah, well, Resurrection was close to my heart, that show. And yeah, that character was, again, like it ticked all the boxes that I love the most. You got it right. You got a good person, or a regular person, you know, who's put into extraordinary circumstances and is trying to figure out how to do the right thing. And that was that was straight down the middle. And that was a wonderful show to work on and a wonderful character to get to build. Same thing that I got to do when I did V. This is going back actually to around the same time as Dragon Age. We made a remake of the 80s.
I loved it. I remember it.
Series. Yeah.
It was awesome. Yeah.
Right? All about aliens invading Earth, and I got to play the alien who was the mole, you know, and who was actually had a sense of conscience and believed in humanity and was working against the aliens who all wanted to destroy humanity. That was super interesting, and that was a character I got to sort of to some degree participate in the creation of and building who he was as we made that show. So that one was fun too.
And you got some of the best moments in the whole show, his whole arc and his struggle, first of all, not to be discovered, and then he's basically tortured. And he was the one we were all rooting for, I felt, you know. So
yeah, for sure.
He was a lot of fun.
And he was always had the secret. That's another thing that's fun, you know, is if your character has something that either the other characters don't know or the audience doesn't know about them yet. That's always a lot of fun for us, because you know you kind of got this I've got an ace up my sleeve in a way. You know, every time I play a scene, I'm like, I got this other thing going on you don't know about. You know, I actually like cookies, and you don't know it yet.
Yeah, right. Well, and that's fun for us as viewers, because we can see that you have a secret. We can see. I think we often enjoy things more because there's something we can tell when there's something going on behind the voice or behind the eyes. That brings something, you know, extra to it. So
that's right.
So thank you for that. And I know we're wrapping up here. So Mark, I want to thank you so much for being with us today for Dragon Age Day and for helping to raise money for AbleGamers. And we're so excited to give fans your CDs, share your music, which by the way, everybody needs to be listening to because it's amazing. And of course your headshots, which we've got a very limited amount of those, but get them while you can. And I wanted to ask you if there's anything you'd like to mention as we exit, anything that you're working on now that you'd like us to check out, or as you go.
You know what? No, that was, I mean, if you want to look for, you can search for my music. I mean, you know, anywhere online. It's on iTunes and all the places. But no, it was great to spend some time with you guys. Happy Dragon Age Day. I love that we're still going Dragon Age, all these years later.
Who knew?
Pretty awesome.
That we would still be asking you about this character, and you're like, who was it? No. So thank you so much, Mark. This has been such an honor for me and such a pleasure. And I hope you go forth and have an amazing weekend. Thank you for being with us.
And you guys too. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.